Okay, YouTube, this is something I've struggled with for a long time. I finally got it working. I'm going to show you a lot of good tips for CNC routing with Inkscape. Specifically how to do following your cutter path based on some plate you want to cut out. Notice when I scale this, the router bit, the path comes inside on the inside and outside on the outside of the piece that you're routing. Also, so that's the final goal. Let me show you how you do this. So you start with a square or whatever shape you're cutting out, and then let's say the holes are these guys. You want to duplicate the holes. You might want to tweak your holes bigger or smaller on the next iteration of your part so they're linked. Okay, you see how they're actually called clones. Okay, then once you have your setup here, you'll go to another step where you clone this and do the subtraction, the boolean subtraction to get this part, and let me go through that. Okay, first I'm going to create the assembly part. This is the part that we're going to cut out. Okay, next, let's say we have some circles that we want to cut out. Let's just draw some circles. Now the temptation is to just draw a bunch the same. Don't do that. Control Z, Control Z. Instead of doing that, create paths by going here and then Control Shift C, or object to path, Control Shift C. Also do Control Shift C on the outer box. Okay, now they're both paths. Okay, now do Alt, you want to clone, so go Edit, Clone, Create Clone is Alt D, so do Alt D. Now it got darker because there's another clone right over it. Okay, now don't clone this one again. I think you just do Control D to copy it. Okay, I've heard don't clone a clone. Here's the original. If I modify it, both of them change. So if you modify your holes size because your bit is different, or you didn't quite put enough space, this will be very easy to edit in the future. So let's locate our holes. You know, you can use a ruler here and the Inkscape to get them in the right position. I need another hole, so I'll do Control D instead of Alt D, which is a clone. You do Control D to just duplicate the hole. Okay, so now they're where I want to go. Again, change the hole. I can also come over here to my path tool and change, you know, if I want an odd shape, whatever. It affects all of them. Okay, I'm going to leave it weird so you see that it works. Okay, so now I have my part. I have clones, 3 clones. Now I want to do a boolean subtract. I want to do this big gray box minus all 4 of these pieces. This is the part where, let me think. This is the time where you have to edit your cloned parts because they're not paths, they're clones. You can't do a boolean on these. That was the part that was frustrating me for a long time. You have to actually let me use just the camera. You have to actually go up to the select tool, select all of them, okay, and then go to your edit tool, clone, and unlink them. Okay, but before I unlink them, that's going to be something that is kind of undoable. So what I do is clone the whole thing. Okay, or actually you could copy the whole thing. I think Control C, Control V. No, that didn't work. Control Z to undo. Undo. Let me try that again. Okay, let me think. Okay, select all of them, Control C, Control V. That didn't work either. Control Z, what am I doing wrong? Okay, that didn't work because I didn't unlink it first. I have to unlink all of these guys. But when I do that, I'll lose the original. So I want to save the original so that I could modify one of these guys and have it change all the parts that I'm going to cut out. So what I do is I select the whole thing and create an entirely new clone of the whole thing. I guess I told you not to do clones of clones, but this is where you do clones of clones. So go to Edit, Clone, and it's Alt-D, or just use the menu. Now it turns darker because one is directly on top. So move it over, okay? Now, at this point, you have your original, which you can modify on top. I can modify all the holes that are going to get cut out, and they all get modified. Actually, they get modified in the bottom one too. But I'm about to destroy the bottom one's cloning abilities so that I can do a boolean. Okay, here I go. So I select all of this and I unclone. I go to Edit, Clone, Unlink Clone, which is Shift-Alt-D. Okay, at this point I have paths, separate paths for each of these guys. But the original is unlinked. When I do this guy, these guys don't get changed. When I come over here and do this guy, they still all get changed. Now, this is the original up here. If I come down here and modify them, you can't modify them, they're clones. Here they're unlinked. I can modify any of them, but I don't want to actually, so let me hit Control Z and undo all that. Okay, so now I have unlinked objects. I can now select all of the end parts that I want to drill out, or with my router on the CNC, and do Control K to group them. And now I select the outer part and then Shift select the inner part and do Control minus. So now I have a part where the insides are going to be cut out and it leaves this outside. Now I want to create the path for the CNC router. So I go to Path, Linked Offset. This is what is the really cool part. The router needs to cut inside of these holes by, say, 1/4 of an inch if you have a bit that's 1/4 of an inch. But it needs to cut on the outside of this box by 1/4 of an inch. So when I do the linked offset, it gives you this little vertex node right here. Hopefully you can see. And if you make that bigger, look what happens. The router bit gets moved inside of the holes it drills out, but outside of the plate assembly that you're going to make. So let's say I have a 1/4 inch bit. What I do is you go select it out, select the little node and pull it out, and then go over to Fill and Stroke. Let me see if I can move this box so you can see it in the camera. Okay, Fill and Stroke, go to Stroke Style. Now I want a 1/4 inch bit, so I go to 1 inches and do 0.25. Okay, now I want to make sure to not intersect my original geometry. Let's see. Let me work on this and get back. Okay, it looked a little weird at first, and you'll learn from this by my mistake. What happened was the fill was still enabled for the linked offset that I had, so when I do this, linked offset, it was drawing fill in here. So what you do is go over to fill, click the X. Okay, now you see the original object and the linked offset, which is in red. I modified the stroke paint to be red, so the linked offset is red. And now when I change my router bit path to 0.25 in the stroke style, I'm going to have 0.25 inches from here to here is 0.25 inches, 6.2 millimeters, let's see, inches, it's 0.25 inches. Okay, now I want the path to go on the outside of this curve only. So I come over to stroke style and let me see what I do here. Hold on. One thing I do is I change the miter joint to this round joint so that you get the rounded edges that a router bit would follow. A router bit could never make this sharp angle in here. That's number one. Okay, and number two is I want to change the stroke style back to a really thin line that the CNC machine will follow. So actually the line it's going to follow is going to be in the middle of this stroke width path, and that middle is at an 1/8 inch. So I want a 1/4 inch bit, so I need to double the stroke width here, and this will require me adjusting again my linked offset. I think I'm doing move instead of scale. So maybe at this point I need to redo, probably delete my linked offset and start over. Let me try that again. So linked offset, edit, path, linked offset, 0.5 inches, double the size of my bit. So here's the vertex point. I need to change the fill again to 0 to X, means no fill, and then put it right on the edge. Okay, so at this point the router bit can't even fit into these areas, so I would have to use an 1/8 inch drill bit, a router bit. So let me do it over again. Delete this. Delete this linked offset. Go to my stroke style, go to path. Click the object. Go to path. Linked offset. Change the fill to nothing. Change the stroke style to 0.25 inches. This means I'm going to have to use a 0.125 bit, an 1/8 inch bit, around the corners. Okay, now we pull it out. Okay, the 1/8 bit fits into my little holes here. Okay, so now I have this path, and now I change the stroke style to something very small, 0.01, for the CNC machine to follow. So here's my tool path. Okay, it's going to cut this, it's going to cut this, and the size is 0.125 inches from side to side. Okay, so the key point was you keep your original up here, okay, and you clone it so you can make your tool path down here. That way, if you need to iterate on your design and your CNC machine, you come back to this one and you make the holes a little different, or you can move them around. Okay, but then you have to clone the whole thing again. Edit, clone, create clone, or Alt D. Okay, so then you did Alt D, and then now you unlink it by going edit, clone, unlink. Okay, and now you select all the bits that you want drilled out, change them to path by doing Control K, and now I do a boolean. I do the outside minus the insides. Oops, I didn't group the insides yet. Control Z, let me group the insides. Okay, group the insides with Control K. Sorry, it's not group, it's combine. Control K. Now select the outside, Shift select the inside, do Control minus. Okay, there's my new part. I modified it. I haven't done a toolpath again, so I have to click it, have to click linked offset. Okay, change my stroke style to double the size of the bit. So a 1/4 inch bit I need, sorry, and 1/8 inch bit I need 0.25 inches. Okay, now I select the fill, I exit out, I go back to stroke style, I come over to the vertex node and pull it out till it matches the edge. Let me see if you can see this. Here's the vertex node, I guess. Just make it line up. Do the rounded corners so that you don't get these sharp things. Okay, and now I'm ready to turn this into my toolpath, so I change the stroke style to 0.01 inches, something really small. And now in red I have my toolpath, and I can copy that maybe to another file and just save it and run a G-code conversion tool on my toolpath. But again, you save the originals. Some other tool tips here. This is called Scale Object with Stroke, and you want that off for CNC work because you want your stroke width, the line width. You don't want a line width to get bigger when you scale things. If you have it on and you scale things, your line disappears or gets bigger. See, my line is getting thicker now because it's scaling the line with the size. So let me undo this. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Okay, but if you turn this little guy off, then your line width stays the same. He will stay the same. I'm zooming now, but that's one thing that you have to have when you're especially laser CNCing, because you don't want your laser kerf to get bigger when you scale something bigger. What other settings were useful? I think that's it. Anyway, this took me a long time to figure out. Half of the reason I'm doing this video is just so I remember it in the future, and hopefully you guys can benefit from it. Thank you. Bye.